Good evening. I'm your host, David Day. You are watching Asia in Review, which is a ThinkTech global broadcast program. We are coming at you live from Pioneer Plaza at the core of downtown Honolulu, and our program this evening is called Philippine Nightmare, Haiyan. And to help us with this program, we have several guests to lend their experience and expertise. With me live in the studio is the Vice Consul of the Philippine Consulate here in Honolulu, Ms. Joy Santos. And Joy, nice to have you with us, and thank you to your colleagues at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Consulate.
David. Thank you.
And with us also some special guests coming in from Maui. I'd like to introduce Mr. Ray Shirkodai, and Ray is the Executive Director of the Pacific Disaster Center on Maui, and with Ray is, you'll see to the right of your screen there, Dr. Heather Bell, also of the Pacific Disaster Center. So Ray and Heather, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Let me start first with the kind of the obvious question before we get into the typhoon itself. And Ray, could you help our audience understand very briefly what is the role of the Pacific Disaster Center generally before we get into this whole particular Typhoon Haiyan?
Sure. Well, greetings everyone. Pacific Disaster Center in a shortest term basically uses latest sciences and technologies toward disaster risk reduction. So our mission is to cover the globe with bringing to bear whatever is proven technology and proven sciences to help decision-making process in terms of planning as well as response and all phases of disaster management, mitigation hopefully as well.
Okay, so if I translate that just slightly, I want you to correct me now if I get anything wrong, but essentially the role of the Pacific Disaster Center is in the preparation or mitigation in advance of disasters and the management of response once one hits. Something like that?
That is quite correct. I would just specifically say that our role really has to do with information integration and really scientific methods, evidence-based decision-making capabilities. So yes, you are correct, but most of our work involves looking at the sciences, what information sources are available, what sort of scientific modeling, for instance, can be applied to gain a better understanding of the situation and go from there.
So you're really the scientific, intellectual brains behind the world of disasters, are you not?
We are, but we also use the integrated approach. So what we present is a result of the work of many others and a lot of experts that are working in different fields, physical sciences as well as social sciences as well as technologists. And our unique role is really how to bring all of that so that all of that information can be readily understood and better presented so that decision makers could be using really the latest available methodologies to base their decisions upon.
Fabulous, okay. And Dr. Heather Bell, sitting there with you, would you just very briefly explain to our audience what is your specific role at the Pacific Disaster Center?
So I manage a team that is responsible for a lot of the modeling, the analysis, and the GIS portions of keeping the content and information flowing through our decision support systems. That includes risk and vulnerability analysis and other types of analysis as well.
Okay, let's try that one more time, Heather. Translate that into English for me, so I understand a little bit.
I help get analysis and model outputs into places that decision makers can use them in formats that they can use.
Okay, so you're basically providing the scientific and informational support for decision makers involved in disaster mitigation and prep and response, something like that?
Dave, if I may just interject, let me use a oversimplification, but an analogy that may help. So what Heather's group also does in terms of modeling, it translates the event, 175 miles an hour wind, into, via modeling, that's one of the things they do, into what damages may be expected out of that event. So a lot of her work goes toward what makes a hazard a disaster.
Okay, and so is there a predictive function in there? I mean, Heather's group sees 100 mile an hour winds. Is that in advance and translated to the as a warning to the decision makers that heads up, this is what we think is going to happen?
I would adjust the phrase warning because we don't have the responsibility to actually warn the populations. That lies with the local authorities and those scientific bodies that are issuing warnings. But what we can do and what we do is get that information and apply damage curves or apply different ways of categorizing it, like the Beaufort scale, and say, all right, we'll say we've got a wind band from 74 to 93. We can expect that to have trees down, some power outages, potentially have this many people displaced. So those are the kinds of translations that we do.
Okay. All right, so let's go now to Joy Santos from the Philippine Consulate here. And Joy, I'm not going to ask you all the things that the Philippine Consulate does, but with respect to this particular disaster now, Typhoon Haiyan, what are the kinds of things that the Consulate here in Honolulu, what are the problems or challenges that you're working with on a daily basis right now?
In terms of Haiyan?
Yes.
The disaster. Okay, so since it started, I mean, in the aftermath of the storm, we have been receiving tons of callers and
local callers.
Local callers, and actually some from the other states. The other states in the mainland. We've been receiving calls about the particular concern that they have is the whereabouts of their loved ones. They could not contact their loved ones in the Philippines, so they were asking us for help.
Well, why does somebody in, let's say, Idaho call the consulate in Honolulu for help?
Honestly,
rather than San Francisco?
Honestly, it's easier to contact the Philippine Consulate. That's in Honolulu. That's what I've heard.
Okay.
So anyway, regardless of the location of the Filipino or anyone who seeks help from the consulate, we try to help them in any possible way that we could. So aside from that, we have been also receiving calls from the community here and requests for assistance in sending donations, relief goods. So we help facilitate them, we coordinate them with the appropriate authorities in the Philippines, and we also support fundraising activities of the community here.
And so are you also coordinating with the Pacific Command at Camp Smith with the whole military operation in the Philippines?
I believe we have the Philippine liaison officer to the U.S. Pacific Command who handles that, who is responsible for that, Colonel Padilla. And
so far on the military response, are there some rough edges there, or is it going relatively smooth?
During the briefing that we had, we were informed that, well, there were some roadblocks, like it's not that easy to get clearances, but the response was faster this time around. And I believe that it's going on smoothly now with the entry of around 12,000 troops from the U.S. PACOM and the U.S. forces.
12,000?
12,000.
U.S. military?
Yes.
On the ground?
Yes.
Including ships?
Ships, aircraft, vessels.
Boy, that is a massive U.S. military response.
Yeah.
Just massive. Let's now, if you're watching this program and you're wondering what this is all about, Mr. Producer, let's go to photograph number 1 here, if we could. And these are just some statistics of this Haiyan super typhoon that has just ripped through the central part of the Philippines and torn up the island of Leyte. And so we're looking at just some unbelievable numbers. Roughly over a quarter million people are in disaster shelters. I guess the number there is 394,000, something like that. The numbers of displaced peoples, just, you know, you see up there almost three-quarters of a million there, 659,000 displaced people. Joy, what about the numbers of dead? What do we have so far?
We the last update from the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Coordinating Management Council says that it's now at 4,017 casualties as of
confirmed casualties at 4,000.
Casualties, but we do not yet know as of how long or how many more deaths we will be receiving. We will be hearing from.
So we have like a huge number of missing persons.
Yes.
And
yes.
that's part of the function that the consulate here in Honolulu is trying to handle, is a missing persons office, if you will.
We don't have the capacity to do that, but we can coordinate, meaning we can direct them to the right agency. I heard that there's Google Finder, and then Hawaii Red Cross. They have a tracking tool. They've been giving us the Filipino community here ways on how to reach their loved ones.
Okay, we'll come back. Stay with us for more of the Philippine Nightmare, Haiyan. After the break, we have more.
We want to thank our underwriters.
Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Maui Electric on Maui and Hawaii Electric Light Company on Hawaii Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company.
The High-Tech Development Corporation, the state's leading technology agency, attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism.
Castle and Cook Hawaii, with a time-honored legacy that spans more than 160 years and revolves around its mission of investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state.
Hawaii Gas, formerly the Gas Company, a proponent of the Liquefied Natural Gas Initiative, helping Hawaii achieve its transition to clean energy and a better energy future.
Collateral Analytics, a Hawaii-based tech company empowering the real estate industry with greater and faster access to the tools and data they need to make better informed property investment decisions.
I'm Nicole Horry. Thanks so much for joining us on ThinkTech.
I'm Maria Kashem. See you next time.
We're back. I'm David Day. You're watching Asia in Review. Our program this evening, the Philippine Nightmare, Typhoon Haiyan. And with us in the studio here is the Vice Consul for the Philippine Consulate, Joy Santos, and connected in via technology. We have the Executive Director of the Pacific Disaster Center on Maui, Mr. Ray Shirkodai, along with Dr. Heather Bell, also from the Pacific Disaster Center on Maui. Right at the break, we were talking, I was talking with Joy, we were talking about some communication options that are available to Filipinos or even Americans who've lost their loved ones, and you were saying one of them was the Red Cross,
Yes.
and then a Google Finder, I
Google
believe.
Finder. And aside from that, the NDRRMC and then the Department of Social Welfare and Development, these are the primary agencies tasked to handle disaster response, rehabilitation efforts. So they've also set up tracing tools for families and for individuals who would want to know where their
Okay, and
loved
those
ones are.
tracing tools, how would I find one of those? If I had you know, my brother was in Tacloban City, for instance, and I couldn't find him, what would I do?
You just enter the name of your brother, the address, and then it will direct you, or it will help you trace him to his whereabouts. Because
Okay, what's the website I would use for that?
okay, you can have the the Red Cross, the Hawaii Red Cross.
Hawaii Red Cross.
www.redcross.com.
Redcross.com. Okay. Now, Ray and Heather on Maui, please indulge us for a moment here. We're going to show the audience who may not have picked up on some of the incredible damage in the central part of the Philippines. We're going to show some photographs. You will not be able to see them, but we'll talk about them as we go here. So, Mr. Producer, if you put up the first one there with the map, that's correct. So, what we are looking at now, Joy, Ray, and Heather, is a Google Earth map that shows the path of this particular super typhoon. And for our audience, you can see that it slices right through the center of the Philippines and makes a sharp right hook around Hainan Island and cuts up into China. Now, Joy, this some people think that typhoons in the Philippines, this is kind of a special event. It doesn't occur very often. How many times a year does the Philippines get hit with typhoons?
It's 30 times, 20 to 30 times
20 to 30 times every year. Now, Heather and Ray, is that about what your understanding is?
Yes.
But
Okay.
not as big.
Not as big.
As destructive as Haiyan,
Okay.
thankfully.
All right. All right. Let's go to the second picture, Mr. Producer. And so this particular picture is of the beginning of before the storm surge. And for those of you in the audience, well, maybe Joy, maybe you can describe what are they looking at there?
Okay, that's actually one of the reasons why they thought that the typhoon is just any other typhoon that had happened in the past is because they are not aware of the storm surge, the definition of storm surge. They just thought that it's
going to be windy.
The locals thought that it's just any other typhoon. It's not. It was not described to them as tsunami-like.
Okay.
So as you can see in the photo, there's a boat and the flowing through it might have been a street, but it doesn't look like a street now because of the
Yeah, it looks like a harbor. It looks like a harbor shot,
Yes.
but the wind speed is just, those palm trees are just
swaying.
I mean, that is a high-speed wind. Okay, let's go to the next picture, Mr. Producer. This is an uncomfortable picture. I will represent to you, Joy, that is a ditch, and those
body bags.
Those are body bags, and this is a mass grave, and this is what's being done, I gather. Can you tell us more about this situation?
Okay, like what I've said earlier, there are a little over 4,000 confirmed deaths caused by Yolanda, and
No, wait a minute. Yolanda
is the local name of the typhoon, but its international name is Haiyan. Just to make it more recognizable for Filipinos, we adopted a scheme wherein we translate it or give it a local name.
So, and every year you have typhoons that go from the letter A all the way to Z.
To Z, and we've exhausted all that. The last one
we're all the way to Y this year, 2013.
We're done.
We're
actually,
done? There was a Z?
We had Zoraida, but it's and maybe we have to start again.
Well, that would be what, AA Aguinaldo or something like that?
I don't know. It could be Araw for the sun. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go back to this picture with the body bags then.
Some of these bags, I would suppose, are decaying, decomposing. So some of them might not have been identified.
Okay.
So it's a sad fact.
All right. Let's go to the next picture there, and this is Tacloban City.
Massive destruction of
Just
Tacloban
unbelievable destruction.
And you can't see any establishment which have stood amidst.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it looks like we're looking at
zone.
a war zone, or Hiroshima, Nagasaki, except for the palm trees. You know, it's this city is just flattened. All right, next slide.
You can't actually see it from the map.
And this is This is one of our U.S. Marines with the, what's happening there, Yolanda? I mean, Yolanda, Joy.
Okay, this is one of the 12,000 forces sent by the U.S. government to aid in the rehabilitation and rehabilitation efforts. They've sent aid, and the USAID has been very instrumental in providing assistance. And we are in awe of the international support that we have received from the U.S. government. That's not very surprising. We knew that we could always count on the U.S. government, but also countries in Europe, in France, in Japan, in China.
Well, let's talk about China's response for a second here. China initially had a little paltry cash donation of 100,000 U.S. dollars.
100,000 US
and
dollars.
Other countries were donating in the millions. And so what happened?
And then, they were in the hot seat for a while, meaning China has been. They were talking about China. They gave a little donation, but then they stepped up. They donated $1.4 million recently, and then as we speak, the Philippine government has given clearance to the Peace Ark, which is the hospital ship of China, to enter the Philippines.
So it is, the Peace Ark is roughly China's equivalent of the U.S.
USNS Mercy.
U.S. Mercy.
Hospital ship.
Is the Mercy in the Philippines yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Okay. Let's go now to the team that we have with us from the Pacific Disaster Center. And Ray and Heather, let me ask you, would the two of you tell us what is your involvement, PDC's involvement in the Typhoon Haiyan relief efforts now? What are you doing?
Well, let me paint the overall picture essentially during the course of the storm, and then Heather might want to add a little bit more specific. So before the impact, of course, as I mentioned, we have a number of capabilities in terms of disaster sort of event monitoring. So we were monitoring the storm and providing some possible damage assessment. So in terms of what could be possible in terms of the wind and or other events essentially causing massive damages. After the storm, essentially, we are working with the international community. The international charter was activated, which means that a lot of satellite imagery would be collected, and by the processing of that imagery and really from the onset, looking at the images of before and after, trying to determine the damages at district level. So we have been publishing to the relief agencies and in coordination with them, estimation of damages to the agriculture, economy, and of course housing. These maps are updated on a regular basis every 24 hours as the information becomes available. And that's one of the main maps that are really used to try to identify where the hardest areas, for instance, where to dispatch the aids and trying to prioritize sort of the aid over there. We also this past weekend, as part of a team with the Marines, one of our folks went down there to help out with the mission of the team, really, along with some of the folks from Naval Postgraduate School, is to reestablish connection and communication in the hardest hit areas. Our folks essentially is embedded with them to try to help out with some of the mapping of sort down there. And yesterday as well, we had, in conjunction with Center for Excellence over on Oahu staff, as well as with Harvard Humanitarian Initiative, a team went down there to observe basically and hopefully collect some of the lessons learned that could be used later on. Not necessarily in the Philippines, hopefully not anytime soon again, but anywhere else, such reaction to events are needed. So, Heather, if I missed anything, please feel free.
No, I think one of our big roles as well is providing a mechanism for multiple organizations, both military and civilian, or in U.S. based, to share information. And so some of the products that we're putting out are based on reports and information collected or processed by the Philippine government, or by Red Cross, or by UN organizations like OCHA or UNICEF, or NGOs that are working on the ground. And we can both process that information and make it available to others, but also make it accessible in terms of format, maps, easily digestible things, and data sets that can be accessed through our decision support system that many of these folks are using.
Interesting. We're going to come back to this topic in just a moment here. We're going to take a short commercial break here. Ray and Heather, please stay with us. Ladies and gentlemen, you are watching a ThinkTech Global broadcast being brought to you right here from the core of downtown Honolulu at the Pioneer Plaza. I'm your host, David Day. You're watching Asian Review, and we're talking about the Philippine nightmare, Haiyan. Stay with us. We'll be back after the break.
Aloha. I'm Jay Fidel of ThinkTech. ThinkTech is a 501c3 Hawaii nonprofit corporation. We began ThinkTech in the year 2000. At ThinkTech, we work to raise public awareness about tech, energy diversification, and globalism in Hawaii. We do 20 live stream talk shows every business day, and we do a weekly TV show on OC16. We pay the bills with donations from our supporters. Won't you help us by making a donation? All you need to do is go to our website, thinktechhawaii.com, and click there on the Donate button. We hope that you like what we do and that you will support us and help us continue to do it. Thanks so much for watching and for helping. I'm Jay Fidel of ThinkTech. Mahalo.
For it, of course, the information coming on the ground.
Okay, we're about ready to go back on the air. All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching Philippine Nightmare, Haiyan, and our special guest in the studio with us is the Vice Consul from the Philippine Consulate here in Honolulu, Ms. Joy Santos. Joy, nice to have you with us here.
Thank you for having me.
And also with us, the Executive Director of the Pacific Disaster Center on Maui, Mr. Ray Shirkodai, and also Dr. Heather Bell. Also the Pacific Disaster Center. Ray and Heather, nice to have both of you with us again. Right before the break, Ray, you and Heather were talking about kind of the involvement of the Pacific Disaster Center in this whole effort in terms of a response to this terrible super typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines. And the principal point that I thought you were trying to make is that PDC is supplying a lot of current mapping and other information to the relief agencies, and I gather the reason for that is to make the relief effort more effective, more efficient, and so that things are not being duplicated on the left and the right. Is that partially correct?
Yes, I think that's accurate. Really the main purpose for the initial mapping, which is done mostly remotely using satellite imagery and whatnot, are really several folds. One is to identify the hardest hit areas, also identify means to get to those areas. A lot of times you would want to identify landing zones and whatnot. Another objective is to identify the possible needs that might be required downrange, and finally, yes, coordination so that all of these maps or information products could be orderly, disseminated, as well as making sure that there's no duplication, or to the extent possible, try to avoid duplication and use the resources effectively to cover a wider area and a range of stakeholders.
Okay, that is a if you're watching this program and you're seeing the mix of support for the Philippines here on this particular program, you've got the Philippine Consulate just buried with efforts to coordinate relief efforts here on Oahu, to find missing persons,
yes.
right? And then over on Maui, the Nerve Center for support for all kinds of relief agencies and efforts at the Pacific Disaster Center. I mean, it's an amazing cross-platform, cross-cultural, and cross-whatever support team that is working on this incredible disaster. Let's go to let me get all three of you involved in some discussion about the challenges that that this particular super typhoon has posed on all of you. And so, Joy, let me go to you first. What are some of the things that happened that have made this super typhoon a real challenge for the Philippine government, as an example?
The real challenge lies in the fact that this is not, we are thinking that this may not be the last kind of typhoon. Other typhoons of maybe similar strength, but hopefully not, would be coming to the Philippines, because if you know global warming and climate change, that is inevitable. But the challenge lies in you said, or you termed this as the Philippine Nightmare Haiyan, the segment. The challenge is for us to rise and to wake up from this nightmare, and we need experts, we need more disaster response capabilities, and we need to tap our partners for that. We need their help for that. So,
all right, and that's a challenge looking into the future, and we'll come back to that because you made a very, very valuable point. But let's get first, what were the challenges on the ground after this typhoon hit for the Philippine government? What because I understand that given the nature of how bad this typhoon was, how strong it was, that the response of the government has been pretty impressive. But what were the obstacles?
Not as we expected. I mean, the aid came, the relief came, but at a pace that was painstakingly slow.
Okay.
Because as you can see, we discussed earlier, we saw the picture of total destruction, total devastation. There were power outages, there was scarcity of fuel, and then roads were blocked. It's not easy for relief goods to be sent to the far-flung cities of and towns in the central Philippines. So most of our fellow men there were suffering. Most of them were dying of hunger and utter hopelessness. So the immediate concern at the moment is how to rehabilitate them, how to transfer them, and maybe livelihood would come after. But the immediate need of our fellow men in the Philippines is shelter, food, the basics.
So your emergency responders, like social workers, military, were they the storm sufficiently severe that
yes,
they were blocked?
Actually, yes. The first responders were victims themselves.
Incredible.
Meaning they were supposed to be there at during the typhoon or even in the aftermath of the typhoon, but they were nowhere to be found because they were fending for themselves. They were looking after their families. They were protecting their loved ones and their homes. So they were nowhere to be found immediately after the typhoon. So that's one of the roadblocks.
Let's go over to the Pacific Disaster Center on Maui to Ray and Heather. What did the two of you see were some of the initial challenges, other than what Joy has talked about here so far?
Well, I think that that's a really important point, though, that the devastation was so extensive and so bad that the local governments were overwhelmed. To a certain extent, the national government is overwhelmed and needs to reach out to others. And that's part of where we come in, and the remote information coming in to try to prioritize where to go and to identify those routes that are cut off. It's the first step. And then information starts flowing from people who can get into the areas and start to deliver aid. But she also mentioned coordination of aid, coordination of information. Those are certainly challenges. The power out, the communication systems out, and those take time to reestablish. And so outside folks can be working together, but those on the ground still may not be getting the information.
Heather, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, and of course I'm going to direct the question to you, but if you don't know the answer, Ray or Joy, maybe you do know. But in terms of the military response, one of the interesting pieces that I thought I saw was an amphibious capability coming in from the Japanese. Am I correct or not?
I know the Japanese did send, but I do not know the extent or the components of that response.
They sent. Yeah, I do know that they've sent, aside from humanitarian workers, doctors, but and then aid, of course, in terms of the monetary.
Yeah, the reason I asked the question was in the wake of the great Tohoku earthquake and the whole Fukushima incident, that one of the things that has occurred is the United States Marine Corps has been working with the Japanese self-defense forces to build an amphibious capability to allow Japan to assist in humanitarian disaster relief, just as we were talking about here. And I had thought I had seen some Japanese amphibious vehicles participating, but maybe not. What we're going to do in just a moment here is we're going to take one last commercial break. And then we'll come back, and what we want to do, ladies and gentlemen, is talk about, you know, the lessons learned, or where do we go from here, or how does the Philippines protect itself from the next Typhoon Yolanda or Haiyan. And so stay with us. You're watching Asian Review. This is Philippine Nightmare Haiyan, and I'm your host, David Day. We'll be back right after the break.
Aloha, I'm Jay Fidel for ThinkTech. For nearly half a century, the Hawaiian Foreign Trade Zone, number 9, has brought the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone program to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. DBED, the Hawaii Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism, operates Hawaii's Foreign Trade Zone program. It does so to encourage international business and economic development. The Foreign Trade Zone mission is to increase the amount of international trading activity in Hawaii, thereby providing employment opportunities for the residents of our island state. For more information, see ftz9.org. I'm Jay Fidel of ThinkTech. Mahalo.
We're back. You're watching Asian Review, being broadcast from the core of downtown Honolulu here at the Pioneer Plaza. Our program today is called Philippine Nightmare Haiyan, and with us in the studio is the Vice Consul from the Philippine Consulate, Joy Santos. Joy, nice to have you with us again. And also with us from the Pacific Disaster Center over on Maui, its Executive Director, Ray Shirkodai, and Dr. Heather Bell. And nice to have both of you with us from Maui. Let's take a kind of a round table here, and let me start with the Pacific Disaster Center, Ray and Heather on Maui. What, you know, you folks have been involved in a number of disasters throughout the Asia-Pacific region here in recent years. Is there anything that we can do as a global community to try to mitigate or insulate these disasters in the future? And I know that I was thinking as I was coming down to the studio here, if we were 10 years ago and this same typhoon hit Tacloban area, the disaster, I think, would be far more substantial because there has been some disaster mitigation, some emergency prep, some evacuation plans put in place, but what more can we do?
Well, let me start, and I think this is a great start to really take a look at the progress that have been made over the last really decade or two specifically, but even prior to that. I think the goal for disaster reduction and really increasing resiliency is to do better than what we did before. And I think there's sufficient data, comparatively speaking, as well that looks at the events of the past and similar magnitude events occurring now. And as unfortunate as any loss of life or damaged property is, we can see really tremendous progress made.
Give me an example, Ray. What's the progress that's been made? I see a picture that looks like Hiroshima. Where is their progress?
So the progress is, maybe we cannot stop all the hazards from occurring, but by increasing, for instance, the early warning time, we can perhaps avoid, evacuate more people in time. By better planning and by better understanding of the devastation, we could perhaps plan better and not build in hazard-prone areas. And all of those incrementally actually have made really progress toward reducing the risk. Now, can we eliminate the risk? I wanted to add that by definition, actually, a disaster is when the event essentially surpasses your capacity to respond to it. So in comparison, if 10 years ago a lower scale magnitude event could have caused as much devastation, now, especially, I have to congratulate the Philippines because they're very active in disaster risk reduction, NDRMCC. We've been working with them over the last decade or so, and they have increased their capacity to really handle a lot of these events. But inevitably, there will be, by definition, a disaster occurring that surpasses our capability really to cope with it. In those cases, I think what can be done is really to try to look at how we could